Cornwall is a place steeped in mystery, filled with unique history and culture. Both real and legendary people have graced these lands and left endless stories to make the droll tellers proud. You've heard the story of the wizard who lived in a tower, the pisky queen of the moors, the king who held court on the cliffs of Tintagel.
But have you heard of the Cornishman who lived in a cave?
That man was Daniel Gumb, an eccentric Cornish character who spent the better part of his life living in this cave. However, unlike the peculiar characters we just mentioned, Daniel Gumb was very much a real man.
You might be wondering, why would a man, along with his wife and children, give up a comfortable life in a peaceful village for a wild and possibly lonely life? Was he that much of a hermit? Was he so dedicated to his work and his hobbies? Of all the places in the world, what made Daniel Gumb want to come here?
Although he spent a large chunk of his life on the moor, Daniel Gumb, born in 1703, spent the first half of his life here in the village of Lincolnhorn. It was here that Gumb was raised into the stone-cutting profession, following in the footsteps of his father. Throughout his childhood, it said he was introverted and took more of a liking to his studies than to other people. Every so often, he would come to this church to borrow books and learn all he could about the curious world. Through self-learning, Gumb became a well-educated man, particularly in the fields of mathematics and astronomy, which bode well in his work. He was a staple in the community, being commissioned to carve many of the gravestones in St Mellors churchyard with his skilled hand, as well as map and charter some of the local estates on occasion. It was also here in Lincolnhorn that Daniel met and married his wife Florence, who would be the woman he eventually spent his life living in a cave with. Daniel Gumb was working in Stows Hill Quarry when the idea to build a cave struck him. Working away, cutting stones, he eventually came across a big flat piece of granite. Something in his mind clicked then. He saw something in and around that stone that perhaps no regular person would. A home.
And so he got to work, carving out an entire dwelling for himself, his wife and his children. The cave was humble, but provided Gumb with easy access to his workplace and a perfect place away from the busyness of civilization.
The quarry was expanded long after Gumb's lifetime, and due to that fact, the original cave has been lost to history. Thankfully, many of the original stones remain, giving us now the opportunity to see some of his handiwork.
Looking at the structure as it is now, it may not seem too impressive. It may look primitive even. But Daniel Gumb had a vision, and he put a lot more thought into his home than you might first think.
The original structure was said to have been small, about 12 foot deep and not quite as wide. One side of the large roof stone was held up with a natural stone wall, while the other side was held with pillars that Gumb had installed himself. On the right side of the doorway, he had carved his own name along with the date 1735. On the roof, shallow channels were carved, possibly to collect rainwater for later use.
Today, only some parts remain of what would have been an impressive rural home. Not only did such a lifestyle save money and resources, but it also gave the man the time and space he needed to pursue his real passions, mathematics and astronomy.
It was here on his roof where Daniel Gumb would spend the days scratching equations into stones and the nights tracking the stars across the sky. His mind was alive with ideas and calculations that remain engraved in the stone to this day. It was this, his love for such things, that earned him the name Mountain Philosopher. Daniel Gumb's story ends where it began, in the small village of Lincolnhorn, where he was buried in 1776, having lived a long and good life.
It was written by author John Allen about Gumb's passing. Death, which alike seizes on the philosopher and the fool, at length found the retreat of Daniel Gumb and lodged him in a house more narrow than that which he had dug for himself.
Daniel Gumb, a legendary Cornish character, a real part of Cornish history, was buried in St Mellors churchyard, right by the church door. On his self-made headstone, the following words are carved, the final words we have to remember him by. Here lie I by the churchyard door, here lie I, because I'm poor. The further in, the more you pay, yet here lie I, as warm as they.